Thanks for joining us on this refresher on the career profile and monthly progress summary. The first part of this video will discuss the career profile, and later we will show the monthly progress summary. For participants, the career profile serves as a referral to an ES, Employment Services Provider, for ES-related services. When discovery services are requested, the ES provider is expected to update and submit the completed career profile upon the conclusion of discovery. However, if discovery was completed previously and the participant is being referred directly into job search assistance, the career profile is not required to be returned to vocational rehabilitation. Rather, it serves as the referral and as a resource for the provider. It conveys key insights that VR has gathered about the participant and outlines employment expectations. VR staff should indicate completion of discovery by selecting the appropriate checkbox at the top of the career profile. This ensures the document is properly utilized for job search support as needed. Regardless of the service being requested, VR staff will complete the first 6 pages of the career profile, providing information like basic demographics, outlining the participant's support system, educational and work information, and some expectations that the participant has about employment. Page 7 is where the ES will start to document the information learned about the participant from their discovery activities. The employment specialist will first note their contact information and will then begin to record the participant's work or internship history, including fields like dates of work, employer, and likes, dislikes about the position. The next section, Planning for Employment, requires the employment services provider to engage with the participant in discussions about preparing for employment. This includes ensuring that essential items such as interview attire, work-appropriate clothing, and necessary forms of identification are obtained, or that there is a clear plan in place to acquire them. Here we see that the employment specialist reported that Dory has appropriate clothing for work and interviews. We also find that Dory has a school ID that is expired and that her mother is going to help her get a new photo ID. She has a birth certificate and social security card already on hand. Moving along, the Self-Advocacy and Culture section of the document contains an optional script that the employment specialist may use to introduce the questions in this section to the participant while preparing to gather their feedback. This section contains questions regarding cultural or other factors, including language preferences, that should be considered when developing an appropriate job goal. In our sample, the ES notes that Dory attends religious services on Saturday evenings and does not want to work during that time. It also notes that Dory's only language is English. The next section is physical health. This area is used to identify any physical limitations or restrictions that might impact the types of jobs that will be most appropriate for the participant. This section also asks how many hours the participant can work each day or each week, which provides an opportunity to know any concerns about stamina or other factors that impact a work schedule. Finally, the physical health section asks what supports or accommodations the job participant needs to be successful on the job related to their physical health. For this example, our writer notes that Dory does not have trouble standing for more than an hour, but she does have difficulty sitting still and does not want to have to sit for long periods of time. She prefers to stand and sit as needed. She finds it best to be able to move freely around during the day. Dory generally does not have trouble climbing stairs, but it is estimated that she would become tired if climbing more than 3 floors. She has no limitations to lifting, and she can work up to 40 hours per week and up to 8 hours per day with breaks. When asked what supports or accommodations the participant would need, the ES notes that Dory will require the repeated instruction of a job coach or natural supports to learn new job tasks and adjust to changes. The ES notes that Dory will need checklists and uses an app on her phone to track tasks. Dory will likely need prompting when she has issues or concerns that need to be brought to the attention of a supervisor. Next, we have cognitive health. This section of the career profile deals with memory and concentration, as well as addresses any limitations the participant may have with completing work tasks at a pace sufficient to meet the employer's expectations. Supports and accommodation needs relating to the participant's cognitive health are also noted in this section. For Dory, the ES has indicated that she has trouble remembering all of the steps involved in a task until she becomes used to the routine. She utilizes lists and checklists to help her stay on task. Dory also has some difficulty completing reading and writing tasks that take a long time. She needs to be able to take breaks when she is learning in a fast-paced work setting, but can improve as she becomes more familiar with it. The ES notes that she will need job coaching and follow-along services, as well as assistance communicating her concerns with others. The next section of the career profile is mental health. In this section, we find questions related to any mental health diagnosis or concerns the participant may have. This section explores any symptoms the participant may experience, how they cope with their symptoms, medications they are prescribed, and potential side effects that would impact work. Once again, there is a question at the end of the section asking the writer to know any supports or accommodations that should be considered to address the participant's mental health needs. In our sample, the ES notes that Dory does not have a formal mental health diagnosis, but she does report anxiety symptoms associated with her autism spectrum disorder. She is prescribed Concerta for ADHD. The ES reports that Dory takes her medication in the morning with breakfast and sometimes experiences headaches as a side effect. Continuing through the document, our next section is substance use. The heading of this section contains a script, which the ES may use to ask about prescription medications and to bring up the topic of drug screens. The section asks if the participant would pass a drug screen if one is required by an employer, and provides space for any related information the participant would like to be noted. For our example, Dory has stated that she could pass a drug screen as she has never used drugs or alcohol. Next, we have legal history. This section asks if the participant has been convicted of a crime that could impact employment, if they have any pending charges, and if there are any locations the participant may not legally access. In our sample case, Dory has no history of legal involvement. Therefore, the ES has answered no to each question in this section. Daily activity. This area of the career profile addresses the participant's typical activities both at home and in the community. This section helps to paint a picture of the participant's routines and interactions in daily life. What does a typical day look like from waking up until going to bed? Where do they like to go in their community? How do they get there? Do they participate in clubs, groups, or religious activities? Do they have hobbies or other interests? Do they adhere to certain scheduled events that would impact a work schedule? These are all questions that can lead to helpful insights into types of work or work environments that would be most ideal for the participant's successful employment. In our example, the ES outlines Dory's typical daily routine, noting her involvement in a teen center at her church, time she spends with her best friend, and certain activities she favors. We see that Dory communicates with friends on her cell phone. She plays games at the teen center and makes some of her own meals. She relies on transportation from others or uses the city bus to get around in her community. She helps in the nursery at her church. She loves to swim, goes to the YMCA with her mother, and is on the Special Olympics swim team. It is again noted that she values her Saturday evening church activities and does not want to work during that time. Next, we have interpersonal skills. Here we explore the participant's skills, abilities, and preferences related to social interaction. The questions include how comfortable the participant feels working with the public, where the participant lives and with whom, and whether teamwork or independent work is preferred. There's also a question regarding whether or not the participant feels comfortable advocating for themselves. Finally, this section includes a question about who the employment has in their life that might help the individual with their goal of successful employment, prompting discussion about natural supports. As you can see, these questions can be used to introduce the participant to ideas and strategies that may help them in their search for work and long-term success goals. It also helps the employment specialist and VR counselor to know what interpersonal skill areas need to continue to be addressed during provision of employment services. The employment specialist has reported that Dory is comfortable working with the public, but has a tendency to become nervous. She is uncomfortable being put on the spot to answer questions. She may have difficulty performing complex tasks in front of other people. She lives with her mother. She likes to be part of a team. Dory has difficulty expressing her concerns and dealing with conflict. She may need help to communicate with others about a problem or concern. She may be hesitant to ask questions. The employment specialist also reports on the availability of Dory's mother for transportation, noting that between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., Dory's mother is only available for quick trips of approximately 20 minutes or less. The next section deals with disclosure. Instructions at the top of this section ask the writer to explain that the participant may decide what they would like to share with their employer about their disability, if anything, as well as what role the employment specialist would take in interacting with the employer. Here we are asked what advantages and disadvantages there would be to having the employment specialist contact employers on behalf of the participant. Then, the employment specialist notes whether the participant would like the employment specialist to contact employers and whether there are any items the participant does not want the employment specialist to discuss with an employer. For our example, Dory stated she's comfortable with the employment specialist contacting employers because she tends to become anxious, asking questions and approaching others she has never met. The ES notes that Dory may be willing to come along to cold call contacts with the employment specialist to speak with businesses. Dory would like the employment specialist to contact businesses on her behalf, and she did not report any items that are off limits to discuss. The final 2 pages of the career profile contain items that are to be completed at the conclusion of discovery. The first part is employment interests and skills. In this area, the employment specialist will document a participant's proficiency and preferences across various skills. Providers are instructed to use interest inventories and job exploration tools which are readily available, such as IndianaCareerExplorer.com. A link to Indiana Career Explorer is provided in the heading for convenience. Under each of the 3 columns, the employment specialist will identify whether the participant's interest or skill falls in the category of needs improvement, sufficient or proficient, or expert. For Dory, you can see that she needs improvement for tasks requiring record keeping or taking notes, customer service skills such as greeting customers or answering questions of adults, or cashier tasks such as managing money or making change. For sufficient or proficient, the ES has identified that reading, stock clerk tasks, planning activities, and using checklists are all areas in which the participant may be considered sufficient or proficient. Under the expert column, the ES has listed cell phone and iPad use, caring for children, caring for animals, and laundry and other household chores. Employment preferences. Here, the employment specialist will record the work preferences that have been identified, as well as possible accommodations that would be needed for the participant to be successful. A link to the Job Accommodation Network is provided in the heading to help with the identification of appropriate accommodations. For Dory, it is noted that she prefers a work environment where she can move around freely and does not have to sit too long. The accommodations identified are frequent breaks and a job where she can stand and move around as part of a normal workday. A preference regarding work conditions is that Dory performs best with routine work and limited changes. The accommodation noted is having the help of a job coach or natural support to learn new tasks and routines, and to use lists and organizational apps or reminders to help her on the job. The third preference noted is that Dory learns best with clear written instructions. The accommodation identified is written instructions for multi-step tasks. The final section of the career profile is the summary. Note that another link has been provided in the heading of this section, which is a link to ONET Online. This section covers potential employment goals, possible employers, best learning styles, places and situations to avoid, preferred working location, preferred working schedule, benefits and wages, additional services, assessments needed, and next steps. In Dory's example, potential employment goals include childcare worker and classroom assistant. Her possible employers include Seacoast Daycare, YMCA After School Childcare Program, Miss Callie's Care Center, Starfish Academy, Fun Island Child Care Center, local elementary schools. She is best at hands-on learning. She would like to avoid rapidly changing environments, high pressure, and production work. She will need to work on the bus route. Her preferred schedule is Monday through Friday, 8-hour shifts, and daytime work is preferred. Under additional services assessments needed, the ES notes that Dory is interested in obtaining her driver's license. Finally, next steps are identified as scheduling the Discovery wrap-up meeting and Dory talking to her youth pastor about potential job leads. Thank you. Hello, thanks for joining us for this refresher on the monthly progress summary. As you know, employment services will be recorded on this form monthly and submitted to VR by the 10th day of the following month. You can get this form from the VRCPS website down here under Monthly Progress Summary. You will need to complete the top section of the form, noting the participant name, the month and year being reported out, and other relevant sections like ES Provider, VRC, and VR Office. You will notice there are 4 columns, which show how each section should be completed. You will indicate the services you are currently providing in the appropriate column. The first column, Discovery, is to be used when recording information about monthly activities like Discovery or work-based assessment. The second column includes Job Search Placement and will be used for recording Job Search Placement Assistance or Milestone 1. The third column includes Milestone 2, Milestone 3, On the Job Supports, Supported Employment, and Youth Extended Services. The final column, titled Miscellaneous, is to be used for reporting on job readiness training, trial work experiences, and any other employment services that are not included in other sections of the document. Remember, you can complete multiple sections of the MPS on the same form. In this example, the ES would need to complete both Section 2, Job Search Placement, and Ongoing Supports on the same form and send it to the VR General email box. Before we begin, you will notice that hovering over the heading of each section displays a caret, which allows for the sections to be opened to display the questions underneath them, or closed with just the heading showing. As you can see in this example, Dory has been working with her ES in Discovery activities. In the first box, the ES is asked to describe what activities have been completed and describe the nature and frequency. When looking at Dory's example, we can see she has been meeting with her ES weekly and has been taking the bus to a local daycare where she has been completing situational assessments in different classrooms to determine what age group she works with best. In the second box, the ES is asked to note any new skills, strengths, or interests that the participant has shown. For Dory this month, she has learned that she prefers to work with the 3 to 4-year-olds, but has learned that she can feel anxious during more chaotic times. Dory has utilized some verbal prompts for and plans to use a checklist app on her phone next week. In the third box, the ES is asked to share how the participant has progressed towards determining their employment goal. In this area, it's important to relay what developments have happened over the month and how the participant has responded to them. In Dory's example, we see that it is noted that she utilizes the city bus as transportation, and she needs to find an employer who has a more flexible start time or a schedule that works with the route times. The fourth box asks about any new challenges that may affect the participant's progress that are being addressed and asks about supports or accommodations that have been identified. This is also the spot to note what communication occurred with the participant's support team and the VRC. In this example, Dory is working on determining a work schedule that better aligns with the bus route and has communicated with her VRC about possibly pursuing her driver's license. The last box in the discovery section asks to describe the next steps. This box should be thoughtfully filled out with logical activities that will be completed next. The last box in the discovery section asks to describe the next steps. This box should be thoughtfully filled out with logical activities that will be completed next. The following month, this info should be further explained in the first question, detailing what was done. In Dory's case, we see that the next steps involve looking for an opportunity to complete a situational assessment in a kindergarten class. The next section is Job Search Placement. The Job Search Placement section should be completed when a participant is in the job search phase and will be utilized until milestone 1 has been achieved. The first question is straightforward and should capture the job goal listed on the IPE. This is also a reminder that you should have an updated IPE with employment services listed on it prior to beginning a job search. Question 2 is very similar to the discovery question 1 and asks for the ES to describe the activities that were completed, how frequent meetings occurred, and the nature of the service, in person, virtual, etc. In this box, the VRC would expect to see what jobs were applied for, how interviewing was going, and what other activities have occurred related to the participant's job search. In this example, we see that Dory and her ES are meeting weekly, have applied for 5 jobs, and have an interview scheduled for the following week. The ES notes this is her first interview and interview prep has begun. Question 3 asks for a reflection on what the participant has learned or discovered over the past month. It's meant to assess their progress, development, and any shifts in their interests or skills. In Dory's example, we learned that she became anxious during interview prep and has demonstrated improvement after practice. Question 4 asks for an assessment of how the participant is moving toward their employment objectives. It's meant to evaluate the participant's level of engagement in job searching, their decision-making process regarding opportunities, and any progress made. In Dory's monthly progress summary, we see that Dory was asked to identify a list of potential employers and bring it with her to the next meeting, and that she has an interview coming up next week. Question 5 asks for reflection on any new obstacles the participant may be facing and how those challenges are being managed. The goal is to evaluate whether adequate support is in place to help them continue making progress toward their employment goals. When looking at Dory's example, we can see that the ES noted that Dory feels anxious about answering questions and that she requires some prompts to complete tasks as challenges that were observed this month. The final question in this section is asking for a plan outlining the next steps for the participant's progress in the upcoming month. It's meant to ensure there's a structured approach in place to assist the participant in reaching their employment goal. In Dory's case, we see that a meeting with the VRC is scheduled for the next month. Additional authorizations are not needed, and Dory has been keeping her appointments and actively participating in services. The next section of the monthly progress summary is ongoing supports. This section will be used to report on services that are provided following the achievement of milestone 1. So this section relates to services that are provided under milestones 2 and 3, as well as hourly on-the-job supports, short-term, supported employment, and youth extended services. The first question in this section asks for a description of the specific support that has been provided, as well as the nature and frequency of the service. Here, you would note what you have observed while supporting the participant and address any changes in schedule, duties, or management that would impact the participant on the job. In our example, Dory has been working in the 4-year-old classroom for the last 3 weeks as an assistant. The writer notes that she's getting along well with everyone, but she worries when the director asks to speak with her. She has some trouble transitioning back to her work routine. The ES reports that Dory acknowledges that her supervisor is friendly and helpful and that they talked about how Dory might feel less anxious as she gets more accustomed to her job and the director. The writer also notes that the lead teacher in the classroom is giving Dory some good tips to help her on the job, so she's getting some natural support there. The second question asks if the participant is meeting the employer's expectations. Here, the employment specialist reports that Dory's director is concerned about how long it takes for Dory to clean up the classroom at the end of the day. It is noted that the job coach is helping Dory work on this task and that she's getting faster. They are using a checklist and have worked with the center director to keep that updated, which is addressing how a natural support is being utilized. We can see that the employment specialist is having Dory start her cleanup tasks earlier in the day in order to further address the issue. Finally, transportation is being addressed by adjusting Dory's schedule to align with the public transportation system. The third question deals with progress. Here you will note whether there are any changes in the participant's attitude or motivation toward their employment. You would also note the participant's level of independence and whether or not supports have started to fade. As you see in our example, Dory has maintained a pleasant attitude and is enjoying her job. The number of hours per week is identified and the number of hours of support provided are noted, as well as some indication of when that support is occurring. The fourth question deals with any new challenges that the participant may be experiencing and how those are being addressed. The prompts after this question remind the writer to specify whether the concerns have been discussed with the VRC, participant's family, support team, or others. Our example shows that the job coach communicates with Dory and her supervisor, as well as the primary teacher in the classroom, to develop solutions and make sure everyone is on the same page. The writer notes that this seems to be working. The final question in this section asks what steps are planned for the participant's progress next month. Here, the writer should note whether additional resources or supports are needed. This is an appropriate place to add any additional recommendations you may have that you would like to share with VR, as well as identifying any touchpoint meetings that are or should be scheduled. Our example indicates that Dory is interested in getting her driver's license, and this has been discussed with her VRC. It also notes that any appointments for services that would help Dory learn to drive should be discussed so that scheduling can be worked out with her employer. The last section on the monthly progress summary is the miscellaneous section, which will be used to capture updates for job readiness training and trial work experience updates. This section will be updated after completion of the job readiness training plan or a trial work plan and should be used to communicate monthly updates or progress to the VRC. The first question is asking for a detailed account of the services or activities conducted with the participant over the past month. It requires a thoughtful reflection on both the types of activities and the frequency of interactions, while also considering the participant's reactions, preferences, and potential needs for additional support. In this example, Aaron is participating in job readiness training to improve his ability to prepare for appointments as he struggles with transitioning between tasks due to autism-related symptoms. This month, efforts have focused on helping him be ready for pickups at various times, including guidance on personal grooming and dressing appropriately for job-related appointments. While he has suitable attire, he strongly prefers worn-out sweatpants that no longer fit properly, suggesting that he may thrive in a casual work environment. Next week, he will begin using a timer for certain tasks, an approach he appears eager to try. The second question is asking for an assessment of the participant's progress toward their goals. It focuses on changes in attitude, motivation, and skill development over time. In this example, it is noted that Aaron's progress has been gradual as he and his support system work to identify effective strategies for improving his ability to leave the house on time. His mother is concerned about how this challenge might impact his ability to maintain employment, but Aaron himself is highly motivated by the prospect of earning his own money. With a new bank account and a goal to save for a vehicle, he is showing genuine interest in becoming more prepared for job searching and successfully holding a job. The third question is asking for an evaluation of any new obstacles that could impact the participants' ability to reach their goals. It also focuses on collaboration and support from key individuals or organizations. In this, we see that Aaron experiences difficulty coping with transitions, especially when he feels pressured to move too quickly. In these moments, he may raise his voice and shut down, delaying task progression. To support him, the employment specialist has found success in silently pointing to the next task on his written list, rather than speaking when he becomes overwhelmed. His mother has also identified that turning off the TV and other noisy distractions improves his ability to focus, as excess noise, especially talking, makes it harder for him to complete tasks efficiently. The fourth and final question in this section is asking for an evaluation of any new obstacles that could impact the participants' ability to reach their goals. It also focuses on collaboration and support from key individuals or organizations. In our example, we see that the plan is that beginning next week, Aaron will start using a timer with a gentle alarm sound to support his task management. Additionally, a team meeting is scheduled for July 30th, 2025, where Aaron and his mother will be in attendance to discuss his progress and needs.